I'm Big Dave.
I'm Ryan Brogdon.
And we are the Paranuts Paranormal Podcast. Good to have you right here. This is episode 4. Tonight's episode is called Paranormal Equipment 101. A very, very important episode, especially if you're just now getting into the paranormal and doing some investigating on your own. This is something that, for some reason, a lot of people don't go over. And I think it's so important to go over your paranormal equipment. How many times have we seen shows that are done where you're watching it and you're going, oh my gosh, they got that wrong. That's obviously a false positive because they haven't learned anything about their paranormal equipment.
All the time.
Way too often. And what we do here at Haunted Nation, the Answers Paranormal Investigation Team, is we are in search of real paranormal evidence. So with that being said, we want to get to know each and every piece of our paranormal equipment, what it does, what it doesn't do, and what it can do naturally by accident or with some sort of interference that is a natural interference of some sort. So we're going to go over a few things tonight to help a lot of you rookie paranormal investigators who are just now getting into it, and maybe, just maybe, because I've had to do this before, some of you seasoned paranormal investigators who've never really taken the time to take a look at what your paranormal equipment can and cannot do. Don't feel bad if you are one of those seasoned paranormal investigators and you just haven't taken the time. This, I think a lot of us have done it. We've gotten that one piece of paranormal equipment that we've been wanting for so long. We've seen it on TV, and now we got it. It's a ghost. A ghost is talking to me using my new paranormal equipment. And then you find out a couple of weeks later when you get into finding out a little bit more about your new piece of equipment that, that was just that was something natural in the air that you just, because you didn't know the equipment yet, was an accident. It happens. Getting evidence is exciting. Whether it be an EVP or a K2 meter bouncing off the walls, or your SB7 spirit box or SB11 spirit box giving you some sort of response that almost sounds intelligent. There's all different kinds of evidence that you can get and get really excited about, but one of the ways that you can tell whether you're doing a great job as a paranormal investigator is when those things happen. If you stop and wait a moment, instead of getting really excited, wanting to jump up and down, go, wait, is there anything else that could have happened that could have caused that? I mean, I don't know about you, but no, I do know about you, Ryan. We've been in that position where we've caught something and we get real excited. We're like, oh man, that's amazing. And we sit there and talk about it 25 minutes later and we go, oh, well, that's what it was.
Like the mouse?
The mouse. Oh my. Yeah, it was crazy. That's going to be on an upcoming film, hopefully, pretty soon. Once again, I won't go. I did this last time. We're going to have to do this film, man. We're talking about the Haunted Hill Manor, and we had something happen there that had to do with a mouse. Well, here's just a little scene.
We just got through hearing the golf ball be put on the stairs, go down the stairs. We haven't opened the door yet. Very excited, though, because we know we caught it on one of those cameras.
And there's the ball. What's your flashlight?
It was at the very top of them stairs.
Yep, very top on that second step down.
Yeah.
And we had it on camera where it was and everything, asking it to move it at some point tonight if it wanted our attention.
Yeah.
Thank you for knocking down the golf ball.
What if we go and review this and we find out one of these mice that are so prevalent in here
Yeah, it's always possible.
knocked it down?
Well, tell you what, let's
go
review it real quick and then we'll see where to go from there.
You rolling?
It's the rat.
The
Bruh.
rat guy.
Oh my god.
Yep. It was the mouse.
Jeez, look at that.
You gotta be careful.
He slept and then ran away.
And jamming it. Hey, look, I got a little ball here. This is interesting.
He actually just
This is
slaps it with his
fun.
arm.
Well, I guess that's a good example of the debunking process. Hey, look, at least we thought that that was possibly what it was before we, just go, oh, no, it's paranormal. There's nothing more deflating than when you think you've caught something amazing and find out that it's nothing or just something natural in the air or something happened. But we're here to kind of help you with that. So, all right, so I'm going to shut up. Let's decide what we want to start talking about first. I think, my opinion, the most inexpensive, usually the first paranormal equipment that a paranormal investigator gets, I know it was for me anyway, is the K2 meter. Okay, now I happen to have on me the ghost meter, which is, it lights up. Did you hear that? Lights up, makes those funny noises and stuff like that. This is supposedly pretty much just like the K2 meter. I've heard that it's supposed to have a little less false positives. However, I've used it many times now, and I've found out that it still picks up some of those false positives, just not as easily. Is that a good way to put it?
Unless it's like pink and red, or yellow or orange, and it's consistently going, then you just really can't really pay attention to it too much.
So let's talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about what can make a K2 meter bounce off the walls like that. Now, just because it goes all the way just because it pegs out all the way doesn't mean it's paranormal. All right. There's several things that can do that are natural in the atmosphere. One of them is if you put this thing and you turn this thing on and you put it up against your refrigerator, all right, the side of your refrigerator, it'll light up like a Christmas tree. All right. It will also do the same thing when you turn on your microwave. It'll go crazy. It'll also start lighting up when you put it next to a plug-in on a wall or next to a powerful light source of some sort or electrical force of some sort. It's meant to do that. This is a scientific piece of equipment made for like electricians and things of that nature. It wasn't intended for, paranormal investigating. So you have to think that way when you're using these devices. Okay. Something else that I see very often in the paranormal community, and I know I'm going to make a few of you a little upset about this because some of you are probably guilty for it. We were too. All right. We're not exempt. We've made this mistake before until we had to learn it ourselves. Cell phones. Cell phones make these things go off. I know you're looking at it like, well, it's not making it go off right now, right? Well, what if I just check my mail? Let's check my mail real quick, okay? Let's see if I got any new mail, see if it makes it go off. No, nothing there. Okay, we got lucky that time. Let's check, see Facebook. Uh-oh. Oh my gosh, look at that, it's a ghost. There's a ghost in Facebook today. Facebook is haunted, man. Facebook is haunted. So anyway, even your cell phone can make this go off. Now, some cell phones have more powerful signals than others. That's the reason why when you begin using these, you need to put your phone on airplane mode. Okay? Now, some Apple phones, some iPhones, it doesn't matter. You can have it on airplane mode all you want, and it ain't gonna make a damn bit of difference. All right, it'll still make this thing go off. So in those cases, if you're really wanting to get legitimate evidence using this, then make sure that you go ahead and turn off your phone if you're going to do that. You're going to know the difference between when you're getting solid evidence using a K2 meter and when you're getting evidence that could be questionable. Because if you're not getting intelligent responses when you ask questions using the device, when it goes off when you say yes, make it blink for yes, or make it hit 60 milligauss for yes, or whatever, and it does it, then you might have something there. But if not, you got to question it.
Yeah, it's in two different situations. Either you're getting intelligent responses from it, so you're asking a question, it doesn't go off at all, You're asking a question and it's responding with it lighting up continuously to where it looks like a conversation, or you're using it along with another piece of equipment as a backup for that piece of equipment. So if it's going off at the same time you're getting an EVP, well, that's two pieces of equipment that are going off at the same time, proving that both are happening at the same time.
Not necessarily proving, but it's compelling. It's compelling.
Yeah, it's more evidence showing that hey, I got this EVP. This EVP is causing some kind of energy, which we've seen like the trifold meter spike up when they recorded an EVP.
Absolutely.
That's great evidence to me. I mean, that makes perfect sense. So that makes the trifold meter or a K2 or something like that more important because it's a backup part of it, showing evidence, proving something else right.
Okay, so K2 meters, we've discussed that. There's a lot more that you need to learn. Okay, it's not just what we discussed here. That can be false positive. There's other things. But we're not going to go into that because we got other things we want to talk about tonight. Research your stuff. Okay. Here's something else that has become very popular for the paranormal investigator on a budget. And they become, you know what I'm talking about. The cat ball. I love these things. I really do. These are so much fun, right? They light up. They got all the pretty colors and everything else like that. And when you let them go through their process after you turn them off and they stop like this, well, then nothing should make them go off unless there's some sort of vibration or energy source which interrupts the little system in there. It's activated through movement, through vibrations, through some sort of an electrical interference. So obviously you touch it and it's going to light up.
It technically needs to be either touched to where it moves or some kind of a stomp or like a bang or something like that. Vibration, a big vibration, just like it's being touched, would make it go off as well.
And if you're not getting that,
yeah, it should never go off if it's just sitting somewhere.
Yeah, if you're not getting that and it just goes off by itself, if there's no loud bangs, there's no major vibration going on, that's what I mean, and this thing just goes off, you got to look at that. You got to take a minute and go, that's interesting. When we've used this in investigations, what we will do is whenever we see it go off by itself, we'll begin to ask questions, hoping that what made it go off was maybe some sort of entity or spirit that may have found out by accident how to manipulate it and make it go off. So we'll start asking questions and asking it to light it up if it was them. And if it was, then it'll light up. And we'll continue to ask those questions for as long as we can to try to get responses from them. If you get no response at all, then we just kind of move on because it could have been something else. Once again, know your false positives.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so what do you want to talk about next?
Could go over the REM pod. The REM pod is also one of the most popular things to use that you see on the shows and stuff all the time. We use them sometimes. It's not like one of our big things that we use, but when we use them, we're just kind of usually just putting them around the rooms, kind of scattered throughout the house or something. So if one does go off, and we're in the kitchen and it goes off in a bedroom, then it might kind of steer us in where to go, where we might have some activity. But the main thing with, and this is kind of a cheaper, smaller version,
the mini REM pod.
The REM pod is kind of a mini REM pod. They're easy to just kind of stick in a chair or throw on a bed in a location somewhere, put in a doorway, something like that.
We've actually put that in Jasmine's back before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've taped it to her back before.
Yep. Yeah, you can put them anywhere. So these are really cool to, if it does go off, then it could be something, especially if you're using it as a communication device. We've had that happen several times where it's gone off, and we say, hey, if it's so-and-so that's wanting to communicate with us, please make it go off again. And it does. And then if it keeps going, we say, hey, can you turn it off, please? And it stops. Those are the kind of things that, you get that visual of somebody's actually sitting there, and grabbing this thing, trying to communicate with you. And that's when it becomes a really cool device to use.
False positives on them, though.
Exactly. False positives are big with these things as well, because like I said, when we have these things scattered throughout rooms in a house, and then we're waiting for activity to happen, and so needs to know what time it is, and they get on that walkie, and as soon as you hit that walkie button, every single one of them will start lighting up and screaming, because walkie-talkie will make this thing go off in a heartbeat. So
you show us that? Bring your camera down a little bit there. Can you do that?
So if I bring this down a little bit here.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, I can somewhat see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got this thing here. You see, get my hand to it, close to it, it'll start going off. But if I get my walkie, and my walkie can be on. Obviously, you can have your walkie-talkie on you, and it's not going to do anything. But as soon as I'm ready to call somebody, and there it goes.
There it goes.
And it'll go on for a while too, because it's still picking up that signal.
Right.
So it's kind of annoying, honestly.
It
when
is.
you have these things and somebody uses the walkie and they just start screaming, and you have to wait for the signal to clear out. But yeah, it's
especially annoying when you're actually getting some sort of paranormal activity, and one of the people on the team will key up that walkie-talkie, and you're like, "Dang it!" Because
like I did to you when you were in Toby's bed.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could feel the energy all around me, and I just knew this thing was getting ready to say something or do something, and then what an idiot!
Yeah, and that was fun.
It is. You are an asshole.
Ryan thinks he's a really funny guy.
Fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a whole lot of fun for you, but it scared the shit out of me, I'll tell you what. Anyway, right after that, though, I ended up actually doing a disembodied voice, so I knew what I was feeling was going on. But yeah, the REM pods are great, but there are also several other things that can make a REM pod go off. And not just a walkie-talkie. We've seen these things, if you put them in an area where there just happens to be a certain electromagnetic signal going through the air, flowing through the air on a regular basis. We had this happen at it was at Yorktown Hospital. We put one of our REM pods in one of the hallways there. We sat it down, we let it set itself, and it was quiet for a few minutes, and all of a sudden it would start chirping. Beep, 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 beep. We thought, oh man, we got a ghost wanting to talk to us. We went over there, and it just kept doing the same thing. Started asking questions, and it just kept beep, 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 beep. It did that nonstop, 24 hours a day for the entire time we were there, until we finally said, screw this, there's no ghost here. It's just something, it's just the place where we put it, and we moved it and stopped doing it.
Again, one of those things that you can use as a communication device and ask questions, use it for getting responses, that kind of thing, or you're using it as backing up another piece of equipment that is getting some interaction as well. Then you know that, perfect example, when you saw your first apparition at Hill House.
Yeah, good example.
You saw something in Joshua's room in the closet in there with his little doorway. You said you saw it, and then right after that, the REM pod was right in front of the doorway, and then it went off just to basically confirm that you saw what you saw. And then when we asked who it was, if it was Joshua, to make it go off, it went off again, and it wouldn't stop. And you said, "Can you let go of it now?" It went off. That was
perfect example.
Good confirmation of not only what you saw, but there actually was something there. You want to test this stuff out before you go to a haunted location to start using it. Play with it. Try to figure out, what's setting it off, the every little detail about it, because if you get to a haunted location and things start happening with it and you're getting fake excitement because you think you're getting all this activity, you might have think you had a great, crazy haunted weekend. Everybody else that is watching your stuff is like, dude, like,
turn off your phone.
No.
So, which brings me to this. All right, now we're not going to go through every piece of paranormal equipment because this is only our first installment of Paranormal Equipment 101 on the Paranuts Paranormal Podcast. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different kinds of equipment, and we're going to try to look into them each one individually. Here's the other big one that's very popular for the paranormal investigator on a budget: the SB7 Spirit Box. This thing's been around for years. All right, it's real simple. It sweeps through radio stations at different speeds, both FM and AM. You can make it go forwards or backwards. Okay, it's simple. It's inexpensive. You can find it pretty much anywhere for roughly $70 or less. Depends on the kind of deal you find. Sometimes you can find whole, baskets of paranormal goodies that one of these will come in. So yeah, if you're looking to find out these, the problem with SB7s and SB11s is what we call audio matrixing. Now this is something that's really interesting. Two different things you got to watch out with an SB7, and you have an SB11, right, back behind you?
Yeah, got two different channels that you can either run separately or you can run them together. If you put a splitter on there, you can run them together and have them come out through one speaker. So, and it also has a temp gauge on it as another kind of a backup. But other than that, it basically does the same thing. It runs through radio stations forward and backwards at different speeds.
Now, with the two different radio stations, the two different channels going at the same time, the point in that scientifically is to kind of cut down on false positives for audio matrixing. That's their hope. That's their goal. And of course, the temperature gauge, like you said before, is just another way for a certain spirit who can't mess with those radio waves to maybe mess with the temperature near it or around it. But audio matrixing, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to make it pretty clear to you. I'm not going to say any names. We've had someone who was unfamiliar with the SB7 and the SB11 Spirit Box use this as a guest investigator one time. And they were hearing everything and the sun, the moon, and the stars coming out of this thing, which I had never experienced before. I'm usually very skeptic about what I get that comes out of this device. And sometimes I think I hear something, but I won't call it until after I go back and review it. That's how serious I am about it. Even if I thought it was an intelligent response, I'm not going to get excited and say, oh, it just said, yeah, I like candy bars too. I'm not going to say it right then and there. I'm going to wait. I'm going to go back. And then when I realize it did, then I go, holy crap, that's pretty amazing. Audio matrixing is when your mind goes to the first thing that you think would go along with a question that someone asks or something like that. It's real easy to get caught up in that, especially if your desire is so strong to get paranormal evidence that there's spirits around you or that a place is haunted. It's so easy to hear certain things come through the radio channels that sound like words or phrases that could go along with what you just said. Is it paranormal? It might be. But here's the kicker. When you're thinking or having something coming through these devices that you think is paranormal and intelligent responses, follow through. Follow through. Stay on that. Okay, I think you just said this. Could you say that again so that I know for sure that it was you and not just my imagination? I mean, think about it. If you're a spirit and you're trying to communicate with these people who have this device that you just figured out how to use, Wouldn't you appreciate that they were honest with you, that they said, hey, look, I think it could have been my mind playing tricks on me. Could you do that again, please? Could you say that again? And if it comes out again, congratulations, you've got something happening right now, and you need to start paying close attention to that, what's coming out of that SB7 or SB11 spirit box. But don't let your imagination play tricks on you. Don't get too excited too quick. Follow through with what you think is coming out of this device so you don't become a victim of audio matrixing.
I can't tell you how many times I've been watching these shows and they're using a spirit box or SB11, whatever it is. And these things are coming through, and just it's basically a break in the white noise that's coming out, and it'll go, Mike. It said Mike.
Yeah.
No, the hell it didn't. It was just a freaking noise. Like, it didn't say anything. And that's one of the things that I will turn the damn show off as soon as I hear one of those, because they obviously didn't take the time. I mean, they in real time thought they heard a word that wasn't there. Then they went to the next step and they went to editing, and the person editing it is probably like, I didn't hear it, but I got to keep it in the show. So they even go in there and put in the words and type Mike right above, and somebody needs to catch that and just take it out, because as a viewer, when you watch that and you're hearing just some random noises come through and these words are popping up saying different things that it's saying, it's a huge put off. And it's one of those things that, reviewing your evidence is super important, especially with your audio stuff. A visual thing, I mean, if you have a spirit walk through the room, okay, you don't have to go fast forward and rewind 100 times to figure out what it was. If it's a full-on spirit walking through the room, you probably figured it out. And in a spirit box, it's going to happen real fast. It's going to say a word, and you got to be thinking about it and comprehend it really quick, otherwise you'll miss it. We've gone back and listened to things that we heard words when we reviewed it that we didn't hear when we were sitting right there in front of it, and vice versa. So it's it's double checking that kind of stuff, because that's the one thing that'll get you, is wanting so badly to have that paranormal experience and wanting something to communicate with you that you try to make something out of nothing. And if you're recording yourself doing this and you show it to somebody, you just lost your credibility as a paranormal researcher, because being an actual paranormal researcher takes checking your stuff and checking it again and checking it again.
That's the kind of things we strive for when we're using the SB11 or the SB7 spirit box. It's something that you don't, that when you go back and listen to it 2 or 3 times, you're just going to be able to hear it even more clearly than you just heard it then. That's the great evidence when you're using these devices. But going back to seeing words on the screen, going back and reviewing the stuff that we do before we put them on our shows, you may notice that we put our words on there. All right, but that's because we've listened to it several times. We've made sure that what it is we heard was what it was that it said. There are times, though, when we're using, say, the necrophonics, something we haven't talked about much. In our films, you notice that I call it our ITC device, because it really is. It's basically, necrophonic is it's an app you can get in your Google Play or your App Store. Now, I know the first thing I said whenever I heard about this app was, bullshit. That's what I said. Okay. And honestly, when I introduced this to Ryan, same exact response.
Yep.
But
I was like,
say
I
what?
said, nothing to do with it. I don't want nothing to do with it. It's an app. I'm out.
Exactly. And I get that. That's how I was before I began using this application too. Necrophonic, and we've not been paid to support any of these devices we've shown you tonight. And by the way, if you are the creator of any of these devices and you want to pay us, please get in contact with us. Get in contact with us really quick at haunted nationtv@gmail.com. But necrophonic is just basically a sound bank of different human sounds and phonetics. All right, and we've used it. Before I introduced this to Ryan, I downloaded this thing because I went on an investigation with our sister team, Tag Hawk, where I saw a couple of their team members using it. Of course, tongue in cheek, I'm, watching them use this thing, kind of smiling into my head, going, these guys are idiots. Where did you find these guys? And then they start asking questions, and we were in a location that's known to be haunted. And they started getting these intelligent responses that I could hear with my ears through that device using that application. And it made me go, I'm going to need to hear more. They used this thing 2 or 3 times throughout their investigation, and it did the same thing over and over again. Well, we went to another investigation a week or so later, went to a place that, bless her heart, she thought she had paranormal activity, but it just wasn't. It was natural explanation one after another. She just didn't know how to debunk things. And they used the device then too. Nothing came out except gibberish, human phonetics, and sounds. The following week, I'm going to try to make this quick, we went to another location that we knew had paranormal activity, and we were going back to investigate it a second time, and sure enough, we started getting intelligent responses coming out of that thing. So it made me say, all right, I'll give it a shot. Downloaded this thing and used it myself in a couple investigations and got the same kind of response in places that were haunted, got intelligent responses using this device. In places that weren't, got nothing. Zilch. That's when I introduced it to Ryan, said, I think we should take a look at this. There might be something to this. And so we did, and we started using it in locations. And how many times now have we used it and gotten straightforward, batshit crazy, intelligent responses using this device?
It's now favorite things to use.
It is. And it's hard to walk away from it because it's given us so much clear, concise evidence when you're not supposed to hear anything but and then you start hearing full words. Sometimes we've had full sentences come out of this thing.
Yeah.
Blows our mind.
And literally what it all comes down to, it doesn't mean that Necrophonic being this app that whoever created it found out how to communicate with spirits. That's not what it is. We found out over time and doing investigations and different things happening that, kind of like we talked about in our last episode, is that the spirits need something to be able to communicate. They need something that, some kind of noise or something that can create a word and give volume to a word to be able to talk and communicate with us. And this is one of those devices that a spirit can manipulate the sounds coming out of it to make words and talk. Just like we've had them talk to us or communicate to us through our walkie-talkies, through our cell phones, through the SB11s, through this or through that. It doesn't matter what it is. If a spirit wants to talk to you, they'll find a way to talk to you, and that just happens to be one of those devices that we found that is maybe easier for them to manipulate to make words and talk to us. So we get a lot of success out of it. So,
and why it's that particular application, I have no idea, because my first thought was, well, if it's online, they can manipulate it. There could be a microphone listening to your questions. There can be this or that, but it's not like that. I've had my phone. This is one of those applications you can actually have your phone on airplane mode, receiving no signal, giving out no signal whatsoever, and it still work like it should, and you still get intelligent responses.
The main phone that we use for Necrophonic when we're all together as a group is a phone that has no service. Not connected to any network. It has no service, so that it's not going to get any interference anyway. when this thing starts talking, it's the most random things you could possibly think of. You know,
Did you just move your hand across your desk like a switch? Move your hand across your desk again. Nothing. No. Mark that. Did we just get another freaking EVP? No, this one was really loud, though. It sounded like a hiss almost.
when this thing starts talking, it's the most random things you could possibly think of. When this thing starts talking, it's the most random things you could possibly think of.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Once again, man, you need to take care of whatever shit's going on at your house, by the way. I think you and I have had this conversation off camera. I don't know what's going on out there.
It'll never go away, trust me. It's
Okay.
just, I literally can't get away from it. Doesn't matter what I do. The first time that I said, okay, I kind of get it now, is it was the first time we were filming at Hill House, and we were upstairs, and you were back in Joshua's room. You had gone through Joshua's door and actually gone back into the cubbyhole back there in Joshua's room. And I was walking around upstairs, and we had it playing over the loudspeaker where you could hear it all upstairs. And I'm just kind of rolling my eyes and walking around like freaking waste of time, like this thing is stupid. And then
You were being a little baby about it. You didn't even want to let me try it.
I was being a bitch because I was like, man, this is stupid. And then you asked what room should we be in to find you. And as soon as we were walking into, I remember what room it was. We were walking into another room, and clear as day, in this deep voice, it goes, Toby's room.
Perfect. I mean, it was clear as day. Toby's room.
No way.
No way.
And what's crazy is that not only was it a different noise than it was usually making, it was a clear 2-word answer, and it was specific to that location. So it doesn't matter what other location you would be in. If it said Toby's room, wouldn't make sense if you were at Stone Lion Inn. There's no room there called Toby's room. But there is a Toby's room at Hill House. So that's when I was like, okay, I get it. And then we've had so many things after that.
Are you touching Ryan's hand?
Are you touching my middle finger?
Touch.
Make it to where we can see your hand in the fog touching my finger.
We believe in it so much that we even use it a lot for our Estes sessions, because it seems like they could communicate through it so easily that using it for an Estes session, we have had some mind-blowing Estes session conversations using Necrophonic.
Absolutely. And, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When we've turned this thing on in places that, and this is important, that are paranormally active, it's almost as if we're turning on a microphone. It's batshit crazy how it seems to be so simple for them to be able to use it. And when you go to these places that aren't paranormally active, you get nothing. You could have that thing on for hours at a time and you just hear nothing but nothing. But even with the Necrophonic app and how much success we've had with it thus far, there's still the dreaded audio matrixing. And it happens from time to time, even to us. That's the reason why, as a paranormal researcher and investigator, you got to be careful. You need to listen back to it after, even though you thought you heard something that sounded clear as day. Before you say, yes, that's what it was, listen back to it several times and make sure. All right, look, this was our very first episode that we have done on Paranormal Equipment 101. Of course, we had to kind of go off a little bit there to talk about some of the things that we've experienced with our paranormal equipment. I know we talked a lot about the application that we use, Necrophonic. You can or cannot use it. It depends on you. You can or cannot believe it. It depends on you. I'm not trying to convince you to use this application because I get it. Me and Ryan both thought it was bullshit before we started using it ourselves until it proved itself to us. So I get it. If you don't want to use it, don't. Use what works best for you. And that's what I always tell people. Never, ever use something because you feel like everybody else is using it. Use what paranormal equipment works best for you, and I believe truly, through my experience, you will get the best evidence. Find what works best for your group, for your investigations, and continue to use it. All right, that's Twin Paranormal, great example of that. They're using the Spirit Talker application. It's had great success for them. They continue to use it. I think that's very smart of them to do so.
Use what works.
Use what works, because your confidence in it is going to bleed over to the spirits that you're around at the time, and they're going to go and use that too. If you have lack of confidence in what you're using, I think they can sense that. And I know that sounds crazy, but based off what we've experienced, it seems to make a lot of sense. We're going to be talking more about different types of paranormal equipment and their false positives throughout our podcast that we do. Not every single time, but from time to time we'll do another episode of Paranormal Equipment 101. So be listening and watching for us to come out with those, especially if you're wanting to find out more about the paranormal equipment that you've just bought or have never used before. Well, thank you so very much for joining us for the Paranuts Paranormal Podcast. Be looking forward to our next podcast coming up this next Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You'll never find two guys crazier about the paranormal than these nuts.